back to the Comstock channel. My name is Brianne Hendrickson. Today I have Dan with us. Welcome.
Always good to be here.
I know harvest is slowly coming to an end, and we are still collecting your yield results. You can send them in at report@comstock.com. As mentioned in previous videos, I will be traveling to Indiana from Texas November 8th, and we'll be going back to Texas November 13th. I know many of our viewers are located in the Corn Belt, and if you are close to southern Indiana, I would love to come visit and do a story on your farm while I'm up that way this time. If you have any questions or would like to schedule, you can send an email to report@comstock.com. Glad to have you back on. Happy Halloween. Are you dressing up as anything?
Well, I always put a fire pit in the middle of my driveway, and I hand out candy from the fire pit, and it's going to be cold tonight. So most of the grown-ups will be around the fire with me while their kids run up and down the street.
That is smart. If you lived close enough, I would probably be there. So today we are talking about the potential for sustainable aviation fuel to jumpstart ethanol consumption. And now, Dan, you told me you wanted to share your knowledge and enthusiasm for a new group called the American Carbon Alliance and the potential they see for a big boost to the value of ethanol by aviation industry.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, what is the core of all your enthusiasm over
Okay.
this?
Well, Brianne, most of our clients are keenly aware that ethanol use in this country has hit it hit the wall, you might say, because the blending standard is still only 10%. E15 use is still restricted for summer use. And E85 demand is constricted because so many stations don't want to tie up a storage tank for a blend that less than 10% of their customers will purchase. In fact, these limits are commonly referred to as the blend wall, blocking further growth. So my message to folks this morning is let's not stop knocking down the blending wall for ethanol. Let's punch through the ceiling as well.
So where does American Carbon Alliance come into all of this, though?
Okay, well, pop up that first slide I sent you and we'll go through that. Okay, it's a relatively new alliance, and I think our folks are going to be hearing a lot more about this. If they just read, that's the logo that I circled in red there, and I just want folks to read with me what I underlined in red. We seek to form one unified voice for carbon capture pipelines, ethanol producers, landowners, farmers, construction trade workers, and citizens that embrace this new energy future for America. So I can't emphasize enough, it's hard not to embrace that mission statement if you happen to grow biofuel feedstocks.
So do you have anything that can explain the difference between SAF and regular ethanol?
I sure can. Pop up that next slide and we'll go through that. So what we have here is a bar graph, and it's got some alphabet soup on it. I think I need to go through. The government is great for alphabet soup. Over in that far right bar, it says the required CI score. Well, what's CI? Well, it's in the headline, carbon intensity. So that's what CI stands for. Then, of course, the second column over is SAF, that's sustainable aviation fuel. And then the middle bar is U.S. corn ETJ. Okay, what does ETJ? That's ethanol to jet fuel standard. ETJ is ethanol to jet. The next column over is CCS, and that's carbon capture storage impact, because we get credits. Hopefully someday we'll get credits for carbon capture storage as well. So, and I wanted to note, I circled the sources for these numbers. These are not pie in the sky promoters who are just putting out wishful thinking and drawing pretty bar graphs of their wishful thinking. I mean, this is the International Air Transport Association, the ANI, the Energy Information Administration, and an outfit called GREET, G-R-E-E-T, which I'll get into in a little bit. But first, let's just go through this bar. The far left one shows U.S. corn ethanol consumption now in the required CI score. For jet fuel is at 50%. You got to get a 50% reduction. That's the standard. The yellow line across the middle is the standard. Well, current U.S. corn ethanol is above that standard. We got to get it below that somehow for it to be sustainable aviation fuel. And so through the upgrading process, and there's 3 different methods for producing SAF. Don't have time to go in through today. Maybe another blog someday. But the SAF upgrading process adds about 16 units to that. Well, that because that has a carbon footprint of its own. So you think, wait a minute, we're going the wrong way on this, because now we're from 53 up to 69. However, carbon capture storage impact subtracts 31 percentage points off of this. And that's where we get this SAF score with the carbon capture storage down to 38. That's below the 50% standard required for strategic aviation or sustainable aviation fuel. And that's what we're pushing for here. And the best part of all this is that once we get it to sustainable aviation fuel, that can be blended at a 50% rate.
Okay, so let's kind of backtrack, because you got me on this GREET, GREET.
Yeah, that's kind of a strange one. Let's go to the next. I kind of thought you'd ask me about that, and I bet a lot of our clients won't be familiar with it either. So let's explain that. Okay, GREET. It's a registered trademark, so you're going to be seeing a lot of this in the future. What does that actually stand for? I underlined where they got the letters for the word GREET. The Greenhouse Gases, Regulated Emissions, and Energy Use and Technologies Model. Now you know why they came up with GREET.
Yeah, I can see why they shortened it.
Yeah. And I circled there the most important part of this. It was developed by the U.S. Department of Energy. The GREET model accurately accounts for the technological advancements and climate-smart agricultural practices that reduce the carbon intensity of feedstock production, enhance the sustainability, and enable the agricultural sector to lower their carbon emissions. That's where we got it below the standard needed, and that's what got me so excited. Now, currently, what are they using currently? Well, they're using something that's no longer accurate. They're using something called the ICAO model, has not been updated in over a decade, and actually rates petroleum-based jet fuel better than U.S. corn grain ethanol, which is patently false. That's what they say. I call it insane, ignorant. But then I'm biased, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Okay, so let's cut to the chase.
Okay.
Because I'm sure a lot of people on here are already questioning, how much value could the SAF add to demand in the value of a gallon of ethanol?
Well, I saved the best for last. Let's pop up that last slide. Wow. This is what jumped off the page at me. So explaining this, that far left column, that's U.S. domestic demand right now, just for the E10 ethanol standard. Okay, 14 billion gallons a year. You throw in the E15, and that goes up to 22 billion gallons per year. Then that last column in black, or the third column in black, that's global fuel ethanol demand currently. 28 billion. Look what happens if we get to the point where the jet industry will utilize sustainable aviation fuel in a 50% blend. It jumps that up to 88 billion gallons per year. And these folks, and again, they're all credible sources, not pie in the sky, folks. They calculate that kind of growth could boost ethanol value by $1.25 to $2 per gallon.
All right, Dan, but I am curious, how does that translate into the value of a bushel of corn?
Great question. Currently, if you look at the ethanol industry, when I first started in this business, the ratio of gallons of ethanol per bushel was down around 2.6, then 2.7, but they've gotten better and better to the point where now today's ethanol industry can squeeze out about 2.95 gallons of ethanol per bushel of corn. So if you do the math on that, if they're correct, then if we get up to the point of where we're reaching the sustainable aviation fuel threshold up to 88 billion gallons a year at the 50% blend level, $1.25 added value per gallon times 3 is $3.75. And if you get up to the upper end of their estimates, $2 a gallon times 3 is $6. So we're talking, by the time this comes to fruition, if we ever hit that maximum standard, the sky is the limit, we're talking an increased value for the bushel of corn of anywhere from $3.75 to $6 a bushel.
So it sounds like corn farmers have a big stake in supporting the ACA.
Yeah.
Is there any way that they can, though? I mean, is this something that is actually achievable?
Yeah, it is. But like everything else, it's going to take some investment. And the Carbon Capture Alliance they have their own political action committee, the American Carbon Alliance. So if you just go to their website, it's American Carbon Alliance, all spelled out, all one word, no spaces, AmericanCarbonAlliance.org. They'll walk you through their whole organization, why they exist, what they want to do, and their political action committee, which is always looking for support. So there is a way farmers can help this happen.
So how soon do you think we'll see this actually happen, though? That's my question. I know that wasn't kind of in our bullet points about what we were going to talk about, but after this, I mean, that is my...
Well, here's what I have found. The estimate of, how fast could all this happen? Well, it depends on this. It depends on that. It depends on the price of fossil fuels. It depends on corn production, all of this. But the targets that they're shooting for is to reach that 88 billion gallon usage gradually. It's not going to happen overnight, but they're shooting for 2030 to hit that level. So it's not going to happen like next year, but that's the potential. And of course, with inflation, I mentioned 44 cents to 65 cents per bushel for corn, but throw in the inflation factor, and that's probably going to be more like 60 to 75 or 80 cents by 2030.
Wrapping up, let's talk about those reports and meetings coming out this week. Today, October 31st, it is Halloween. We would love to see your trick-or-treaters, so send in pictures to report@comstock.com. Also, today is First Notice Day for November grains. Wednesday, we have the ethanol production coming out, and the Federal Open Market Committee meeting concludes at 1. As always, a market mover when Jerome Powell is giving his speech after the meeting. Lastly, Thursday, we have export sales. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks, Dan, for showing us that you can punch through the ceiling and the sky's the limit for this corn.
That's a good way of putting it.
Thanks.
You bet.
Want more premium content? Subscribe to the Comstock Report, where you will receive 2 reports daily. Want more video content? We are on Facebook, YouTube, and now TikTok. So don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe.